Hey, sports fans, Athletics Chat 83, your favorite podcast of the week. The good looking guy in the middle with that nice sweater on and red shirt is Stuart Weir, the intellectual capital of the world. The guy with the gray beard looking like a Confederate general is Larry Eater. I am in Fort Atkinson, Wisconsin, where I believe it is 3 degrees. And we got 4 inches of snow last night and 3 inches of snow the night before. And my car battery died. So it's been a great day. Stuart, great to see you.
Yeah, would you like me to call you General?
You know, there's times I'm using this. My girlfriend Kathy got me this beard kind of oil and a beard wax. And so I'm starting to get that look like one of those old posters or something, but it feels much better. But I'll tell you, it does keep your face warm in the winter,
Right, there you are.
So there is just craziness going on in the across the pond. Stuart, do tell.
Well, the continuing story of UK athletics. Now, anyone who has followed it for a while will know that up until 2017, there was an amazing period of stability with Ed Warner, chairman for 6 years, and Niels de Vos as CEO. But since then, they have struggled to fill either position with anyone on a permanent basis. And a few months back, probably 3 months back, Joe Coates, who was the CEO, who had not made a lot of friends, decided to resign, and on the same day, the performance director, Sarah Simmington, also resigned. And so that's fine. We are going to appoint a new CEO and a new performance director. But they decided to put Mark Munro, who was the development director, in as acting CEO for 6 months. Now, most people think that Mark has done a good job. He is very much a man of the sport. Somebody who's an astute watcher said to me, I think 5 years from now he would be a wonderful CEO, but I wonder if he's quite ready for it, because it's quite a step up from being CEO of Scotland to being a director of UKA to being the CEO of UKA. And actually, this week, Mark has announced that they are now looking for a permanent CEO, and he is not putting his hat in the ring. And that is for personal reasons, is all that's being said. My understanding is that he still lives in Scotland and has found a way of doing the director's job and even the temporary CEO job, of balancing the family being in Scotland and him being down in Birmingham, which is probably 250 miles, but feels that if he is going to take on the job on a permanent basis, he would need to be there on a permanent basis. And at the moment, for family reasons, he's choosing not to do that. Which means that we're now back in the business of looking for a CEO. Come back to that in a moment. But we had an interview process to appoint a technical director, as they called the new performance director, and they did not make an appointment, but basically said that they found that the most suitable candidates were not available to start immediately. And so they really wanted somebody to start, because, I mean, look, this year we are currently 5 months away from a World Championship. Then there's a Commonwealth Games, then there's a European Championship, not to mention a World Indoor. And really, to have no one in place as a technical director, performance director in such a busy year is difficult. Sarah Simmington is a very competent lady. She has a lot of good things about her, but the general feeling is that her background was cycling and netball, triathlon, and that she did not ever quite get the complexity of a sport which goes from a 60-meter sprint to a marathon to a cross country to throwing to world championships to diamond leagues to cross country, etc. So in many ways, she has not really been that effective, I would say. And but they were unable to make an appointment that they had confidence. So what they've done is promoted internally on a temporary basis. Tommy Yule, I do not know him personally, which is an indication that he sort of very much been a backroom person. His job title was previously support head of performance sport. He's previously worked for British weightlifting. He's worked for the English Institute of Sport. He has a strength and conditioning background, but he's not a man who has dealt with elite track and field athletes at the highest level in terms of championships and so on. So there we are. At the moment, we have an acting CEO, an acting technical director. Somebody said to me, and slightly cynically, that we're now about to try and appoint a CEO and a chance to make the Joe Coates mistake over again. Now, I want to ask you a question at this
point. Sure.
What is the role of the CEO in a track and field federation, and what kind of skills are you looking for?
Well, the biggest thing that I believe in observing the CEOs that have been in British athletics that have been successful and in USA track and field is they're a face. They need actually to be business people, and they need to understand the sport. They need to be able to go charm in a boardroom and bring in a top athlete that some CEO of a .com company loves and collect that check for $100,000. That's really the job. They need to understand the sport, and they need to have political background. But I'm going to add something here. This is what totally shocks me. I know for a fact that on the last go-round with Joe Coates, one of the candidates was Ashton Eaton's coach, Harry Mera. Now, if anybody knows how to coach track and field, it's Harry. Finn Lanana brought him to Oregon to take care of Ashton. He put, I believe, 2 meters on Ashton's shot put just by showing him some basic stuff. The guy knows more about track and field than just about anybody in the world. I also know he applied this time around and very little communication. So there are people out there, both in the UK, Europe, and in the US, that can handle that technical position. And I really wonder what's going on. And there are people out there right now, and I know this for a fact, qualified, who would jump at the chance, and they were never contacted. So I'm really curious to see who the list is on the technical person, which really scares the hell out of me. Number 2, in terms of the CEO, yeah, as you said, CEO's got to be someone who understands business. I think, Mr. Beattie has shown what he's able to do. Someone who knows that you got to be an asshole sometimes, pardon my French, and 50% of the people are going to dislike you most of the time if you're doing your job right. But the sad thing is right now is that, if I was asked the 5 biggest stories of the first 2 decades of this century in track and field, one of the top 5 would be the rise out of the ashes of British athletics. And right now, they're in a very tenuous position. And it doesn't have to be that way. That's the scary thing.
Mm-hmm. Two things in the job description that interested me was evidence of commitment to sport and an ability to gain credibility and respect within the sector. And you see, I think that is where Jill Coates failed.
Yeah.
I mean, Jill Coates is a very competent lady. She did good things, but she never really gained the credibility. She never convinced people that she understood the sport and was able to lead it, taking people with her. But the other thing is interesting. It says knowledge and experience of athletics is desirable, but not essential. And I mean, that really is the charter for bringing in another Joe Coates, who has experience of leading, who is good at governance and structures and all that, but he just didn't quite get the sport. I mean, the only person whose name I have heard mentioned is Jack Buckner, who is a former elite athlete who has been CEO of swimming.
Okay. That makes sense. Yeah, Jack was the 5,000 meter runner.
Yeah. But again, you see, I don't know how good he is at the things that you have mentioned, the kind of business acumen. I mean, what British athletics desperately need at the moment is to get a TV contract nailed down and to get commitments from sponsors going forward. And, I think in some ways, you might say that's as important as the knowledge of the sport. But equally, at a time when you've had a performance director who has not done that well, and now you've only got an acting one, there may be a danger of looking for somebody who can, as a CEO, micromanage the performance side.
Yeah. No, I think you're throwing the challenges out there. I would suggest something that a good CEO or a good manager knows what they can't do, and they bring people in who can do the jobs they can't do better. I would see any CEO, my counsel to them would be to first thing you do is make a phone call to Alan Pascoe, ask to have a nice lunch with him, and ask him what you can do to get his support to bring sponsors back in, because Pascoe and Ridgen and Stewart were the guys who put that, and Cherry Alexander were the folks who put that money and made those meets real. I believe that during that time, and the only thing Neil DeVos had to do is cut the checks and keep his mouth quiet, quite frankly, and he didn't do that too well. But Pascoe and Ridgen and Stewart and Alexander put on the finest meets in all of Europe and gave BBC something to televise.
The good news is that Cherry Alexander is back.
That's awesome.
But it's certainly, you could argue that the two most important posts in the organization are the CEO and the technical director. And currently we don't have anyone permanent for either of them. Now, you mentioned Ian Beattie, the chairman. I think he is a really impressive man. And, there's always pictures of him on a Monday, having been at an event on a Saturday. And I don't think he goes because I have to go because I'm the chairman. I think he's going because he wants to go. And I mean, like there's pictures of him last weekend at the cross-country race in Belfast that the Helen O'Beary won. So I think he is a good man, but he is the chairman. He is at best 1 day a week in the job, and he's not running the organization. So certainly to find yourself in a big gear without a CEO on a permanent basis and without a performance director, technical director, is quite a serious position. And I'll try and say this diplomatically. The head coach, Christian Malcolm, there are a lot of people I hear who do not have confidence in him, but yet he doesn't have anyone above him now.
The question that I hear about Mr. Malcolm is this, in some of the acquaintances that I have that are familiar, is a lack of communication is probably one of the biggest challenges. And it could be that Christian is just so very busy with the job. I understand that, but also communication is key. There's texting, there's phone calls, there's voicemail, there's Facebook. There's so many ways for us to stay connected. And that gives confidence. When we don't communicate, people lose confidence. And in all these jobs, as you said, Mr. Beatty being out there is teaching a lesson because people see him. And that does give confidence in that role. We need someone you guys need someone in both of those positions. The CEO position, that person's got to be seen, that person's got to be a charmer, and that person's got to be, and I hate to use this term because many under 30 won't understand it, they need a Rolodex. What I was always told when I was going for magazine positions as a publisher, how good was my Rolodex? And that really meant was, how good was my list of contacts? Who could I call up and depend on? And that's the key. And in positions like this, if you can't get people on the phone, if you can't get people to respond to your text or your email, and on the technical side, well, that person really needs to have some coaching experience. If you want to give real confidence, get someone who's won a couple or coached some kids to a couple gold medals. And that's not necessary, but it's out there, and you could do it.
Yeah, I mean, this is just my speculation, but you see, I think that one of the biggest mistakes that Joe Coates made was appointing Sarah Simmington as performance director instead of Stephen Maguire. Because, I mean, Stephen Maguire fitted that profile perfectly. And Stephen has now gone off and become performance director for Sport in Ireland.
Wow.
And I still think they would love him to come back, but whether that's going to happen, I mean, I don't like talking about people's future on this, but I think that they're living with the consequence of that mistake. And because, somebody can be available at one point and then their life moves on.
Yeah. And that's a sad thing, and it's also a slap in the face too. We all have a bit of an ego, some more than others. And that hurts when you're not recognized for the work that you've done.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So you had a quote from Fred Curley that you wanted to chat about.
Yeah. Now, I was talking to Fred just this week, and I sort of complimented him. I thought I was very clever. I'd one up to think it's John Mulkeen's stats. And I said to him, Fred, there are only 3 people in the world who've ever gone sub 10, sub 20, and sub 44. And now I hope I can remember them. There's Fred, there's Michael Norman, and there's Van Dijk. But what Fred said to me, he just wouldn't buy that at all, and said, look, anybody who can run 43 for 400 could run 19 for 2 and could run 9 for 100. And the reason there's only 3 people is because not enough people had tried it. And I mean, he specifically mentioned Michael Johnson and LeSean as people who could. And he said a very interesting thing to me. He said, a lot of it's to do with coaches who are scared to let their 400 runner try a 100 in case they don't come back to 400. So what I want to ask you is, do you think he's right that actually there are loads of people who could have done it, but they just didn't try it?
I think he's partially right. And let me give you my thoughts. Back in 1994 in Knoxville, I watched Michael Johnson run the 100 meters in the championships. And I think he ran a 10:28, and then he pulled up. He got a muscle cramp. I think that was the biggest fear with the long sprinters. I think there's many that are capable, but I think many are terrified of it. And I think what Fred did this year shocked everybody. I mean, I thought Fred was injured and that he wasn't going to make the team. And then I saw him run the 100 and the 200, and I said, whoa, he's got something going on here. Fred doesn't give himself credit. He's a gutty runner.
Yeah, but I mean, it's interesting because I was wanting to write an article about why he had changed from the 400 to the 100, but unfortunately, he rather ruined it by saying, I haven't. And he said what happened was that coming into the US trials, he had just come off running a 44.7 in Hangolo, but his ankle was swollen coming into the US trials. And he was having trouble running bends. And the night before the entries had to be put in, he, his coach, and his agent, Fred said to them, look, I think the wisest thing for me to do is to run the 100 and the 200. He said that his only ambition at that point was to make the Olympics in something. And so he ran 986 from memory in the 100, and he ran 1990 in the 200, which made him the fourth American and the three Americans who went to Tokyo were second, third, and fourth. Fred, if he had run 1990 in Tokyo, would have been fourth. But so that's it. I mean, he said that, look, if I'm healthy this year, you'll see me running 100s, 200s, and 400s.
Wow.
So, interesting.
That's going to be fun to see.
Yeah, but he did say, Larry, not all on the same day.
Oh, darn. Okay. Well, that could be an issue.
Again, those of us who are not really familiar with the how college works. I mean, during an event in London where they put the men's individual 400 and the men's 400 relay on the same day, I said to one of your runners, isn't that a bit hard? And he just shrugged his shoulders and said we do that in college all the time.
Oh, yeah. 15, 20 times a year. No, it's just, it's pretty amazing. That's why these kids are so strong,
Yeah. So,
that keeps it fun.
The other thing I had to talk to you about is the DNA meet, which is coming up in Glasgow. And DNA is not what you think it is. It's dynamic new athletics.
Okay.
And there's this 2-hour meet in Glasgow, first weekend in February, And it's Scotland against England, against Wales, against Ireland, against Spain, against Turkey. We've got men and women. We've got 60 hurdles, 800, and then something called the hunt. And 800 for women, and 600 for men, 400 for women, 200 for men. I'm not quite sure how that's going to work. And then we get 3 field events. But the way the field events are going to be done is as a kind of, imagine like a tennis tournament, where rather than competing against each other, you will compete against one person, and the loser goes out and the winner goes on to the next round. So a total of 18 athletes, 9 men, 9 women in each of the 16s. And the last event somehow will decide the winner. And it's, it's not just like, it's got, the last event is the hunt. So I don't quite know how that's going to go. I wonder if it's going to be a kind of a handicap that the team that is leading on points will have a start over the others. But anyway, I'm going, and it will be interesting. It says it's going to be fast-paced, a sequence of events, only one event at a time, 11 events, focus on run, jump, throw, traditional and new formats in a new way. Everything counts. Points for everyone who finishes. It reminds me a bit of what they did in Melbourne about 6 years ago. I can't remember what that was called.
Yeah. Okay. They had a special kind of a format. Didn't someone try to buy that?
I don't know. This has been put on by European Athletics, but I gather that one of the vice presidents of European Athletics, a certain Cherry Alexander, is the person behind it. But I mean, I'm quite fascinated to see what happens.
Yeah, me too. Me too. That really sounds pretty neat. Pretty neat.
Yeah, except I mean, I suppose I'm a bit of a traditionalist or something, but I quite like the Diamond League finals and stuff like that, where you have where you have people just doing the sport in a traditional way. But yeah, perhaps I got to be open, and I suppose that this is traditionally cricket used to last for 5 days. Now we have games that are over in 3 hours because that's what the public wants. And, Mr. Cole keeps telling us that people want a 2-hour action-packed program, and so does, well, perhaps this is it. I will be very unbiased when I go there and write about it for you.
Well, thank you. Talk to me about Laura Muir's going after the 1,000-meter record.
Yeah. I mean, I don't get that excited about that. I mean, Laura Muir, I know Laura Muir is also in the DNA. I mean, if I were a cynical person, and look, you and all our listeners know I don't have an ounce of cynicism.
Not at all.
I would say that they wanted to get Laura in the meet because it will sell tickets. So what do you do? Do you make it a competitive race? Laura may not really want a competitive race because she's not doing the World Indoors this year. And so a way of making it competitive is to say that she's going for a record.
Sure. No. That makes sense.
Do you know one of the sad things, which I know you'll agree with me on this? I think it's really sad that Laura is not going to Belgrade, because I would love to see her win and do a lap of honor.
Yes. Especially what she pulled last time.
That wonderful moment when some silly official told her that she couldn't do a lap of honor. And as Laura told me afterwards, I just dodged past her and I knew she'd never catch me.
Yeah, that was a great moment. I really enjoyed that. And even from my perch as the American that they had to hide somewhere, I could see things quite well. Our friend Helen O'Beary ran in Belfast last weekend.
Absolutely, yes, yes. I mean, it just seems that Helen is a competitor, and she just runs and wins. She's just when you think that a particular event is her strongest, she then changes to a different one.
Yeah, yeah.
And
No,
just when you think that she's a track runner, she goes out and wins cross country races.
yeah, she's gone back to her basics.
Yeah, yeah.
She's also with a new shoe company too. She's competing with On Running.
Oh, don't tell me it's all to do with the shoes. So it's not her talent, it's the shoes, is it?
Oh, I think it's her talent, obviously. But I also think something else is going on right now, dear friend. You've noticed that On Running and Puma and a few of the other brands, Brooks, have been picking up some athletes, and Adidas as well. And that's because Nike has let a lot of athletes go. This is pretty typical in the Nike cycle. It's so performance based, but it's a lot of people have taken this to heart. And the New York Times has written several articles about, well, is Nike getting out of running? And I think that's just balderdash. The truth is this: Phil Knight and his wife dropped $281 or $82 million. What's a million between friends, right? To build Hayward Field. And it did not replace the old Hayward Field, which many people knew and loved. But it is a monument to the sport. And it's spectacular. And it will host the World Championships. So Nike's not getting out of track and field. They're approaching it differently. If you look at what they're doing now, they're taking athletes with a huge amount of social media impact and highlighting them. They're also working with the record holders. And there seems to be some type of discussion within Nike. I'm not privy to this. I'm just talking about this from the outside on how to approach things. But for such a long time, there had been people at Nike who really understood track and field. And while there are some there now, there are many who don't have the spirit of a Jeff Hollister, who was he and the late Steve Prefontaine were the two guys who really started sports marketing at lovely Nike. So big changes in how athletes are being approached. But thank God, On is picking up people. Hoka is picking up people. Brooks is picking up people. These clubs in the U.S., Under Armour has these clubs in the U.S. have really been the key to U.S. development over the last decade. Helen is an athlete who perhaps Nike thought, well, what is she going to do after, her medals on the track? But the truth is this: I don't think Helen's ready to put the spikes up or put the racing shoes up yet. I think cross country is just the beginning. I think we're going to see her in some big road races, and think about seeing her in a marathon. Can she take some of these people on? So it'll be interesting. Tell me about the first World Indoor Meet in Manchester. What do you know about that?
I decided not to go because I had to decide at a point where I wasn't sure I was ready to go to a meet. It seemed to go quite well. I think you'd say that there were not many world-class athletes
Okay.
in it. It was probably a stage down from that.
Mm-hmm.
And but the reports were good. It wasn't streamed, so there was. I gathered that at some point on YouTube there was a highlights, but it was not streamed live. I think it was. I mean, there's two sides to everything. I said that it wasn't really quite a world-class field, but that means that a lot of very good British athletes had a chance to run.
Sure.
And I think it's nice for a lot of people just to get out and get a meet. Similarly, there have been 2 or 3 meets in Scotland. So leading in, I mean, it's now just about a month until our indoor trials selection for the World Championships. So people want to get in 2 or 3 events before that, I would guess. I think it'll be interesting to see how many people do the World Indoors this year, given that you've got a World Outdoor, a Commonwealth, and a European. Just whether people will do it or people will think really I would prefer to be training in March.
No, I think you're completely correct. I mean, we've got 2 of the nice World Indoor gold level here. Millrose Games on the 29th, the night after Karlsruhe, and then also the New Balance Indoor Games on February 6th, which I'm hoping to get to. But I'm really wondering with all these meets, and right now I'm wondering when we're going to start seeing some publicity and some promos from our friends in Eugene. Understand 100,000 tickets have been sold, but this is the first world champs in the United States, and I really think they should be making some noise. But I'm just an old guy who likes track apparently, and so we'll have to see how that goes. But Stuart, you survived Athletics Chat 83, my friend, and so stay safe this week. I just posted your piece on Katie Nagiet, which is wonderful, and we'll be putting up the pieces on Ryan and on Malika. And then for our German friends, we have a special treat. We have the audio on SoundCloud that my brother's posting, all in German with Malika, which will be a kick. So,
ach so.
Yeah,
das ist gut.
That is
freut
good.
mich.
Stuart, have a great week. This is Larry Eder with RunBlogRun and Stuart Weir, Athletics Chat 83. Thank you to Mike Deering for putting up with us. Stay safe. Well, hello, sports fans. This is the epilogue to Athletics Chat 83. We had a lot of topics to cover today. The big thing, crisis again in UK athletics. What the hell is going on across the pond? So here's the deal. There is not a technical director, and they're looking for a CEO. Mark Monroe, who's the interim CEO, is not going to be among them. Many people thought he was doing a fine job. The excuse for the technical director is, well, apparently there's some candidates they want, but they can't get them right now. So they're not going to name anybody. This is 5 months out from a World Championships. What is going on? And I don't get it because there's candidates out there. One, for example, Ashton Eaton's coach, Harry Mara, could do this thing in a heartbeat, could help coaches over there. And he's had gold medalists and silver Olympic medalists. So why don't you guys hire somebody to do the job? What I hate and what I'm concerned about right now, and hate's probably a bad word, but what I'm concerned about is in the job descriptions for CEO and for technical director, they say that it's not necessarily a track background is needed. Yes, you need a track background to be the CEO of UK Athletics. And yes, you need a technical background to be the technical director of UK Athletics. Get someone so you guys can do well. We're 2 decades into this century. 5 big stories I see in track and field. One of those 5 is the rise out of the ashes of British athletics. But right now, you've got a lack of leadership. They did do some good changes. Joe Coates was a very nice person, but not the right person for the job. Sarah Simmington was definitely not the right person for the technical director's job. But now you really don't have a technical director. What do you need in a CEO? You need someone who can walk into a boardroom, You need someone who can bring in an athlete, who can remember to bring a T-shirt to get that $50,000 check to support something, who can charm the heck out of people, and who has a great CMO. And what a CEO does best is knows that they can't do squat, and they got to put people in those positions, those other positions, who can do the stuff better than them. My suggestions to a new CEO candidate at UK Athletics: first phone call, Alan Pascoe. Mr. Pascoe, can we have tea? Can we have a pop? Can we have a Guinness or something? Please, 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 help me. Yeah, that's what you should be doing. You know why? Because Alan Pascoe knows how to raise money and knows how to highlight things. And one of the reasons why UK Athletics did so well from 2000 to 2017 was because, one, they had money. Two, up until about 2014, you had Fast Track raising that money for you. And three, you had CEOs who knew sometimes they need to keep their mouth shut, although that last one there kind of didn't get it all. So there's some messes there. Can they be fixed? They can. There's some wonderful athletes in Welsh athletics, Scottish athletics, and British athletics. UK Athletics should be a powerhouse, and they've got some good things going. So I hope they can get a good CEO and a good technical director. On top of that, we've got our friend Fred Curley. I love Fred Curley. This guy is, he's a man of few words. He lets his feet do the talking. Olympic medalist in Tokyo in the 100. No one would have believed that a year ago, And he didn't make the decision until just before they had to announce what he was going to compete in the Olympic trials, in his sore ankle after going 44.77 in the 400. So he decided to do the 100 to the 200. And he made it in the 100. And he almost made it in the 200. 986 in 1990, I think. So pretty impressive. Fred, can't wait to see what you're doing this year. No, you're not going to do the 100, 200, and 400 in the same meet. But, and Fred said something else to Stuart. Fred said the only reason why there's only three, Fred, Wade Vanderkerk, and I'm forgetting who the other person is, who've gone sub 10, sub 20, and sub 44. I'm just having a mental break right now. He said there should be many more. And I agree there should be many more, but it's tough to do. And Fred is much tougher than people give him credit for. So Fred Curley, we worship you. Then the first dynamic new athletics meet will be in Glasgow on Feb 3, and our friend Stuart's going to be there. And that should be a lot of fun. And then we've got coming up Karlsruhe, which is the 28th of January, Millrose, which is the 29th, and the new Balance Indoor and on Staten Island at Ocean Breeze, which is the 6th. We had our first World Indoor Tour meet in Manchester. It sounded like it was a pretty good meet. Brashear Sports, it was a United, they call it a Box United, B-O, capital X, United meet. It seemed like a lot of athletes who were on their way up were competing there, which I think is a great thing. I'm disappointed that there was very little coverage of the meet, but we really didn't have a lot over here to get. Apparently there's a YouTube video, so I'm going to grab it and we'll do a story on it because we think it's important to support new meets and new ventures. And I love the World Indoor Series. So a lot of good things happening, and congratulations to Helen O'Beary, who won up in Belfast in the 8K cross country, 26:44. It's her first time competing for On Running. On's been around for 10 or 12 years. They support the On Zap Running Club and the On Athletic Club, and they've got some tremendous athletes. Oli Har, they've got Alicia Munson, and they're coached by Dathan Ritzenheim. And On's doing some really cool stuff. But here's the little key. If you're going to start a footwear business, or if you're in the running business, the more you support grassroots, which is what Puma's doing again now, doing some great innovative things. Hoka 1-1 is doing it still and doing well. Brooks is picking up new athletes and have supported Hanson's Brooks Distance Project, the Brooks Beast and Des Linden and athletes at that level for a long, long time. Adidas is continuing to support, and the majority of athletes are supported by Adidas and Nike. Nike has let go many athletes, but that's their pretty typical way of doing things. When athletes change performance levels, sometimes they keep them, sometimes they don't. And I think Nike is in a time of contemplation and reevaluation of how they're doing sports marketing. It'll be curious to see how they come out of this time period. But there's a lot of athletes out there without contracts, and that's got to be hard. So with that thought, we're going to be covering indoor now for the next month and a half, and then we'll be going to outdoor and Boston Marathon, a lot of fun other things. But this is Larry Eder with Athletics Chat 83. Thanks to Stuart Weir, who is my cohort, and he lives in Oxford, England, the intellectual capital of the world. And thanks to Mike Deering, our production manager. And thank you to our viewers. Please pass this on, because the more people who watch it, the more times I can buy a can of, Trader Joe's organic beans. Okay? Stay safe and wear a mask indoors.